welcome to the ADNA Know Your Narrator series. Today we're very happy to have Darren Polish with us. He is a voiceover talent. He is a voiceover artist, and he does audio description narration. Thanks so much for joining us, Darren.
Glad to be here, Roy. Thanks for having me.
What do you love about audio description?
Well, I guess a standard answer would be that it really opens up the door for visually impaired audience members and creates a whole new landscape for them as far as being able to participate in, entertainment, right? Entertainment, movies, TV shows, streaming series, things like that. It's broadening its scope as we speak. But I think what I love the most about it is not only being able to describe and narrate and bring that to the visually impaired audience, but to be part of that overall team, right? Every production has its crew, and it starts off with a script, and goes the whole way. The actors and the the production company and all of that, right? And it does, but for us, it doesn't just end there. We get to add that extra collaboration layer onto everything that's audio described, with joining forces with usually a writer who writes the scripts for our audio description, and then we as the voice that brings life to the description orally, right? So I think that's a great collaboration and extension.
It's really cool how you distinguish the different roles here as part of the crew. And I'd imagine that in audio description that everybody's got to bring their best. Everybody's got to bring their game, and like the weakest link can really affect the experience that the audience gets, particularly when it comes to that. As you said so great, opening the door for that landscape to participate in entertainment, that each element, each contributor to audio description really does enhance the participation.
Absolutely. When I first started doing audio description over 10 plus years ago, I had no idea. And I don't think most non-sight impaired or visually impaired people really do grasp the amount of people in the United States, at least, the amount of people that are visually impaired. And I would always ask, when people ask me, oh, what is AD? They don't know. If they don't know, I always say, how many people do you think are visually impaired in the United States? Just to kind of start off the conversation. And they usually say, I don't know, maybe 1 million, or 2 million. I said, how about 30 million? And they're like, everyone's always blown away by that. And I said, yeah, that's a large portion of an audience that, before audio description or the reach of audio description, they kind of don't get to participate fully like visually non-visually impaired people do. We go and we watch a show and we kind of take it for granted, right? But once you start to delve into that world, you realize how important it is for this to be available to all those people.
Very cool. And those sighted people, they respond with, "Oh, okay," or is it more confusion?
No, I think they get it. I think they get it. And, they may say, well, what does visually impaired mean? Does that mean fully blind, like they can't see, or partially blind, or things like that? So we go into a little bit of that conversation. But to answer your question, though, the collaboration between the writer and the audio description narrator, you're right. If whatever the weakest link is where things can fall off. So you may notice, doing audio description as well as much as I do, you find that some writing is like really good, and then some writing is good but not as in detail, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and it's like I'm hesitating because I want to make sure that when it comes to the story being told here, is that it is that collaboration does make a difference. That as you work with super talented writers, that it makes your job works so much better. It's like I just said well because I'm not a writer. So it's like, at that point, I'm showing my cards here. I'm not a
That's
writer. I
okay.
read a script. But one of the cool things that it sounds like you're doing now, and particularly in the last year, that you've been growing another skill that's expanded past your voice work as a audio description narrator, and now you're also doing multiple roles in audio description. Can you talk a little bit about that, either generally or specifically?
Yeah, I think specifically you're referring to the WWE SmackDown on Friday nights on Fox.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, which is live AD, which is a very interesting and at times can be challenging to an audio description narrator. You're right. We follow a script, right? We read the written word, but we add our element to it to really bring it to life for the visually impaired. So when it comes to live, there is no writer, there is no script, and you're kind of calling it as you see it. So in your mind, real quickly, at a micro speed, macro, maybe macro, micro, I don't know how I would describe that, but on the fly, I shall say, you
Mhm.
are describing what is going on, Now, when I first started, I thought, well, isn't that what the announcers do? They describe the moves and, all of that stuff. Yes, they do. And we don't want to overtake their position. What we're doing is we're adding on to that, right? So a lot of times they may be speaking to each other. And what's really funny is in WWE, this always gets me, is the announcers will be talking about something, maybe a match that's coming up, or they're talking to a wrestler who's sitting by the announcer's table while a match is going on. And they'll have this conversation. They'll be watching the action, but they'll be having the conversation or with each other with another wrestler, and they'll say things like, well, we know next week you'll be old, and they kind of do this reaction, but they don't say what's happening in the ring. So either it sounds like, someone visually impaired may think like, are they having a stomach condition or something, because they always like launch into this, this emotional reaction to what they're watching, but they're not thinking, oh, visually impaired people, they have no idea what's going on inside the ring. So we'll kind of jump in and chime in real quick, like, um, Roman Reigns off the top rope landing on, we'll do something like that real quick to really, to explain it, because, people have no idea. It's very comical to me when it happens.
Sure. And it sounds like the way that you're doing this live AD, that there's a fair comparison to be made to a sports radio announcer giving the play-by-play, in a sense, that you do have access to visuals that someone on the radio doesn't have access to, in the same way that our blind audiences are able to fully participate in the enjoyment and excitement of the game.
Correct, correct. So what we're trying to do is as quickly as possible, and of course not jumping on it. And we try to time it the same as audio description for, films and things where we talk between dialogue. We don't want to step on too much dialogue. So we really do try to find that moment live, which is not, very easy to do all the time. You're kind of rolling the dice by starting to say what you want to say. You keep it very short, maybe just a few words real quick, things like that. But, it seems to be going very well, and it's a lot of fun to do.
Very cool. So when it comes to the work that you're doing, you've brought from your, it sounds like more than a decade of experience in audio description. Just by voicing those scripts, there's an osmosis of what works and what doesn't work just based on the writing, that I'm imagining like Karate Kid, wax on, wax off, that you've practiced this indirectly for so many years, that when you started doing the live announcing, that you're adding an extra skill to the work that you've already practiced as a voice talent, in that, like you had said, that now you're figuring out when to jump in, when not to, that there's almost an intuition that comes. Is that a fair way to explain it?
Yeah, I would definitely say that doing audio description narration for so many years and so many projects, you really do get a sense of a workflow, a what's proper, how you want to describe things, based upon what you've learned from the writers, right? They write and we speak. So When it comes to the live, we really try to be specific. We like to use descriptive verbs. He places the microphone gingerly into Roman Reigns' hand, things like that, to really give it as much description as possible. Because the more general you are, in certain circumstances that will work, in other circumstances, you really want to paint that picture for visually impaired people. So they really get a sense of being there, being involved as deeply as a sighted, or I don't know if it's correct to say non-visually impaired or a
It's
sighted person,
sighted people and blind and low
sighted
vision
people.
people is how I've been defaulting, but everyone has their own approach, I guess.
Okay. So, so yeah, so that has been an absolute excellent training ground for live AD. We have that experience on how to say things, when to add slight emotion, when to add, those little elements that will really bring it full circle for the visually impaired audience.
And I'd imagine that going into something as specific as live audio description for wrestling, that you must have done a ton of research to be able to do that on the fly as effortlessly as possible under all those circumstances. Can you describe some of the steps that you took in preparation or behind the scenes to be able to do what you do?
So one of the first things I did was I got a binder and I went onto the WWE website and I just started to go through and I made all of these different pages for I would have a photo of the wrestlers. So I have it broken down to male, female, tag team. So I have all these different pages in my binder and I would put their name, and if they were a tag team, I'd kind of put them together in a tag team area. And um, I would just start listing them. So new people would be coming on every now and then. So I would add them to my pages. I also have announcer names, interviewer names. There were certain segments that they used to do, and there were characters in the segments. So every week, if there was someone new, I would write it down, or I would put it on my phone, text it to myself. I do that a lot. I text to myself as kind of like a way to memo myself. And then I
Nice.
would go back and, keep adding to this binder, just any information. So it's, and then once you start to, memorize who's who and what's what, you don't really have to access it, but it's my own little kind of handbook.
Very cool. Can you talk a little bit about the collaboration, about what it's like working with Fox or working with your other live audio description announcers?
Yeah. Working with Fox is great. It's the same routine. We go in there on Fridays. We get there about an hour before the matches begin. And we just kind of, look at any news feeds if we know that something special is coming up. Like we just, I noticed through one of the news feeds that they had a new announcer coming on, a ringside announcer that was swapping out with one of the other announcers. So I knew that in advance. So we just kind of prep up a little bit before then. And then we do all the audio checks to make sure that the audio description levels are good with this is all the, behind the scenes Fox stuff. We make sure that we can talk back and forth from the area where we have the little studio and where the engineers are. So we just prep up there, and then we get the countdown 3, 2, 1, and you're on. So it's ready to go. And then what we do is every week there's actually 2 audio description narrators there. And it's myself and a Tansy Alexander, who is we switch on and off every other week. I'm not sure exactly why Fox wants to do that, but that's great. And then so if I'm on mic, Tansy is by the engineer, and we have a direct kind of a off-air mic that we can talk to each other. So if something's going on where there's another wrestler who kind of comes running down and it's someone new, one of us can jump on and say, that's Commander Azizi, real quick. And then it's like, and then immediately out of out of my mouth or whoever's on mic, Commander Azizi runs down, we shout it out. So it's kind of like that network, room where they're kind of, pumping into a newscaster's ear, information. So we do a little bit of that, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah, and it sounds like if you're talking about tag team, you're also tag teaming behind the scenes. I love when audio description gets meta like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot of fun. And it's great, that we can act as a team, and just to make everything the broadcast for the visually impaired, as best as we can.
That's so great. And we've spent a lot of time in this interview talking about Fox Sports, specifically WWE. Can you talk also about some experiences you've had with other types of audio description narration that you'd like to share?
Yeah, one of the I primarily do features, and I do TV shows and streaming series like Apple Plus, Netflix. Um, and so the WWE was my first venture into live, which is very interesting. And so I'm always looking to expand, right? Anything we can do as audio description narrators to help, the inclusion and the reach of the scope of the audience. I'm always open to. So it's been great. I've done a lot of projects. Every time I get a new one, and especially to be able to see films or shows before they air, or they come out into theaters, or now, when we get back into theaters. So it's a lot of fun. Recently, one of the things I did recently, I was very happy that I was chosen to do, was I auditioned for the Spectrum app, the app for the visually impaired. Are you familiar with it?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, we've interviewed two people from Spectrum Access.
Okay. So yeah, so I auditioned for the Spectrum Access app for a commercial that they were doing, which is, I believe it's still running now. It came out right at the Super Bowl, which was really cool too. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's really promoting the Spectrum Access app for visually impaired, so that you can use the app to get audio description through the app on certain programs. So I was chosen to be the audio description narrator inside the spot, because a woman is watching, or I don't know if I should say watching, but participating in a show, and she's listening to the audio description, and I'm the voice of the audio description narrator in the commercial. So that was really, I mean, I was so honored to be chosen to be that voice in that process.
Very cool. Yeah, and my understanding is audio description audiences who are blind do refer to it as watching, the same way we say, see you later, or did you see that part when this happened? And that kind of immersion that you
Hmm.
contribute as a voice talent, and also as a live audio description announcer narrator, that's giving that kind of flow of, as you had said earlier, that participation in the entertainment, that this is an access that it sounds like you're really passionate about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's great to be a part of that community, and I try to say the right thing, because I may not know, so I don't want to say the wrong thing, and just be on anybody's bad side, because I just said something inappropriately, because maybe I'm not sure if what the correct verbiage is on how to label things. So forgive me for that if that happens. But yes, I'm very ecstatic about being a part of this community. I think it's fantastic. And sometimes, I will close my eyes and listen to things and watch shows, and really kind of understand that other side of things. And we really do take a lot for granted, when you do that, and especially as a describer or narrator. um, I'll listen to things being audio described, and I say, okay, can I really grasp all this? And it's just fantastic for everybody involved.
That's great. So where can we follow you?
You could follow me anywhere you want, Roy.
Aw, see, thank you.
Well, I do have a website, darrenpolish.com, and I try to update it as often as possible, but I get kind of busy, so that kind of falls by the wayside. And what I do is, I do have a presence on Facebook, which is Darren Polish Voiceovers. So if you want to search that, I don't know the exact link, but I do put a lot of projects, the audio description products, as soon as they come out. Because as you know, we can't really mention or talk about anything before it airs, or else we get in big trouble. So once I know that it comes out, I usually I'll put the movie poster up or the show poster up and kind of put a little blurb about how fun it was to narrate that show or that feature or program, things like that. So that's another place.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for joining us, Darren.
My pleasure, Roy. Thanks for having me.